وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Inshallah, we're continuing our journey with the Quran. Just one thought that came to mind is that there are things or ideas or concepts that are emphasized repeatedly in Quran. That's the nature of the Quran. That's how you get the methodology of the Quran, and you get the foundational ideas and concepts, the ones that are emphasized over and over again. So we have seen, for example, that the methodology of the Quran is very clear of Islam, is to convey the message to people and to tell them what are the consequences, and then encourage them to make the right choice, discourage them from making the wrong choice, but leave the choice for them. This is something that we will see even today, inshallah. That's repeated in the Quran. So every time there is this warning, this good news all the time, Bashiran wa Nadhiran. Like the Prophet ﷺ was Bashiran wa Nadhiran, meaning he was sent to give good news for those who make the right choice and bad news for those who don't. The Quran is also Bashiran wa Nadhiran. The Quran is also full of this. And that's make you surprised how some people understood that they can take the law in their hand and they can impose religion on people, and they can. So why all of these warnings in the Quran? No, Inna anzalna alayka al-kitaba lin-nas. This book was sent to people who the Prophet ﷺ and ourselves, we are just male person, male man, deliver the message, deliver it in the best possible way. Muhammadin illa Rasul. And then it's the decision of people, it's their choice, it's their decision, it's between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nobody should interfere, and no consequences in this life. There are no consequences for that decision in this life, for someone to choose to accept Islam or not to accept it. What's going to happen thereafter, that's none of our business, and that's not something that we know, and that's not something that we can guess. It's between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is their creator. He will be the judge, and he is his justice is absolute, as we'll see emphasized over and over again in the Quran. And therefore, there is no point for anybody to interfere between people and their creator. He left it, he reserved it for himself, and it should be kept as such. There is no confusion. There should be no confusion about this. And you will see this again emphasized, and that tells you the methodology of Islam, the Quran, and the Islam in general. It's that. It's your job is make it easier for people to accept Islam through your behavior, through the way you deliver it, by the incentives that you give them, not the other way around, and tell them that otherwise that's what your creator said is going to happen. So it's between you and him. Just be aware of of the consequences. Be aware of what you're missing in this life and hereafter. You're missing guidance. You're missing God's protection. You're missing. You still can do it, can make it in this life, and you can even succeed in this life, because this life is subject to rules that are not biased towards Muslim. But you just have to know that's what it is. That's the story, or that's the whole idea, is that there is a message that was sent by our creator. It's the same message that was sent before. It was just confirming, and this is the final and universal, and that's the one that was preserved. And I just invite you to take a look, because it was sent to you like it was sent to me. And then when you read, you will see by yourself what is this message and what does it entail to accept it and or to reject it. That's all. Where we get these ideas of appointing ourselves judges and start deciding who's going to go to heaven and who's going to go to hellfire, and then from there, and who's the believer and who's the kafir, and then among the believers, who are the good Muslim, the one that who are going to succeed in the hereafter, and the ones that are, even though they're Muslim, but they're not going to make it. And we're not aware that the tickets of heaven are in the hands of anybody to make reservation or to sell them or to give them to anybody. And we're not aware that anybody is a gatekeeper, neither on heaven or hell, so that to decide or channel the traffic, and who's going to go here and who's going to go there. It sometimes becomes very sarcastic and very silly. Wallah. Becomes very silly when you see a Muslim appointing himself or herself and as a judge for humanity, and then start categorizing, and then first Muslims and non-Muslim, and then among Muslims classifying them, and then it's anyway. We reached verse 26. This is one of the, I mean, it's not appropriate to say beautiful verse because all the Quran is beautiful, but this is really special verse. Let's say, قل اللهم مالك الملك تؤتي الملك من تشاء وتنزع الملك ممن تشاء وتعز من تشاء وتذل من تشاء بيدك الخير إن على كل شيء. Let's complete the في الليل حي من الميت حساب يعني of توحيد and private يعني talk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The scholars say that this is directing. Whenever you see at the end of
sorry,
you
Dr.
see
Suhail,
something that
the voice is not clear. Dr. Suhail, the voice is not clear.
Let me see. Is it better now? No?
I think the voice is clear, but the internet connection seems to be breaking. Like,
Oh, what is breaking?
I think you have your connection is becoming weaker and stronger because we can hear you, but it's disconnected. It's disconnecting and connecting again.
Okay, let me see what's going on and see what can we do about it. How about now?
It seems to be good now.
Okay, let's see. Let's use these. Maybe they can help sometimes. Okay, basically, I was reciting verse 26 and 27. And I said, this is very heavy dose of Tawheed. The Quran, whenever you see dua like this, supplication, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is directing the Prophet and through him directing us to make that dua. It's like an invitation. It's an invitation to make that dua. So we go to 26 and 27. Say, Allah, holder of all control. And you are basically talking to Allah here. Allah, and you say, Allah, holder of all control. Malik al-Mulk. We're going to come to these, inshallah. You give control to whoever you will and remove it from whoever you will. You elevate whoever you will and humble whoever you will. All that is good, All that is good lies in your hand. You have power over everything. You merge night into day and day into night. You bring the living out of the dead and the dead out of the living. You provide limitlessly for whoever you will. It's one of the most concentrated verses of Tawheed and Munajat. Munajat is private talk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he's talking to Allah privately. Malik al-Mulk, this is something we should not take it lightly, because this is a fundamental principle in Islam, is that everything belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means that there is no other owner. You're not an owner, you are a trustee, a manager. You are a manager, but you are not an owner. Why? Because Allah is Malik al-Mulk. Even yourself, you belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your body belongs to Allah. Your time, your money, everything belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why if we try to say it sincerely, when we lose somebody, we say lillahi ma akhada wa lillahi ma a'ta. That everything belongs to Allah, whatever He has given and whatever He takes. So takes away. So make sure that you remember this. Malik al-Mulk. Malik al-Mulk means there is only one owner in this universe. So there is no such thing that's my body, I can do whatever I want with it. Or that's my money, I can do whatever I want with it. You cannot harm yourself, you cannot harm your body, you cannot squander your money, because you're going to be asked about it. It's not yours. Very simple. It belongs to Allah. تؤتي الملك من تشاء وتنزع الملك ممن تشاء. So the word tasha here, which is you, as you whatever you what is it? You to whoever you will. This tasha, this especially the first verse has both the word tasha and the word ala kulli shay. These are absolute, transcendent attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Means that His will is absolute. He does what He wills. And also you cannot even ask Him. لا يسأل عما يفعل. لا راد لحكمه. يعني لله الأمر من قبل ومن بعد. So these meaning, all of these meaning, they emphasize this idea of Allah having absolute control and absolute power and total ownership of everything in this universe. And Malik and Mulk is very strong. Mulk by itself, Malik by itself, each one of them is strong. But having them together, it's very, very, very strong. So you give control to whoever you will. Allah gave you control over a certain amount of money, certain amount of time, certain power, certain influence, whatever. Gave you that control. It is, again, it's a trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not, it's not transferring ownership or control. No, it's still trust. And then you give control to whoever you will, and then you remove it from whoever you will. And we have seen how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removed control and power from very, very powerful individuals in history. تنزع الملك ممن تشاء. And even in recent history, there are some people who we never thought one day they will lose any power and control, and we have seen them in very bad situations, and that's also confirmed with the next statement, which is تُعِزُّ مَنْ تَشَاءُ وَتُذِلُّ man tasha. So not only you give control to whoever you will and you remove it from whoever you will, but also you elevate whoever you will and humble whoever you will. And we have seen that. We have seen that time and again. تُعِزُّ مَن تَشَاءُ وَتُذِلُّ مَن تَشَاءُ. We have seen people who were very humiliated in Mecca becoming leaders and prominent leaders and very respected, and vice versa. I've seen people who were very prominent leaders of Quraysh and then ended up in very humiliated. بيدك الخير. This is it's a good touch here that because when there is absolute power, you may have tendency to be worried. Absolute power, you know, especially when in the human, from a human perspective, it's something that especially Arabs and Muslims, they have all reason to worry about that, because we have seen horrible things throughout the history of Muslims. When power it's become absolute power is in the hand of one individual or family or whatever. So you have tendency to start worry, and then comes بيدك الخير, that this is for your own good. This is not a power that you need to worry about. This is a power that should make you very comfortable. Why? Because all that is good lies in your hand. So with the power, there is khair. And that's amazing touch from the Quran in the middle of two very strong statement, because after that, there is also coming back to power and control. إِنَّكَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. In the middle of that very strong dose of absolute power and absolute control, you give control to whoever you will, you remove it from whoever you will, you elevate whoever you will, you humble whoever you will. That's something scary. And then before إِنَّكَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ, Quran injects بِيَدِكَ الْخَيْرِ, that this power is not the kind of power that should make you worried or scared. That's the power that should make you very comfortable, that you are worshiping the disposer of all affairs, the creator of everything, the one who has control over all of these things, that actually should free you and liberate you from anything else, from any worry or any fear of people, or looking for or expecting anything from anybody, because you are dealing with the one in his hands is everything. So بيدك الخير, beautiful and eloquent touch from the Quran. Is all of it is very eloquent. إنك على كل شيء قدير. إنك على كل شيء قدير, that you have power over everything. I don't think there is any other verse in the Quran that has stronger dose of Tawheed. Maybe Ayat al-Kursi comparable, but this is probably one of the most concentrated dose of Tawheed that I have seen in the verses of the Quran as one verse. مالك الملك تؤتي الملك من تشاء تنزع الملك ممن تشاء تعز من تشاء تذل من تشاء. That's 5. And then إنك على كل شيء قدير, all of that in a very short verse. And then in the middle, بيدك الخير. Even بيدك الخير, by the way, it's very strong because all that is good lies in your hand. So it's not only the control, or the power, but also everything that is good is in your hand. بيدك الخير, that all that is good also lies in your hand. تولج الليل في النهار وتولج النهار في الليل وتخرج. This verse, this part, there are different explanations for it. Let's see how it is translated. You merge night into day and day into night. Now, there are a couple of main explanations for this. One is that the day and night during the year, they keep always, one of them is reduced and one of them is expanding, and then vice versa. That's one explanation. So the day takes from the night, and then vice versa, the night takes from the day. So تولج الليل في النهار وتولج النهار في الليل. Probably the more common one is the sun rise or the down, and then the sunset is how the day is emerging from the night, and الصبح إذا تنفس, and the night how it's also merging into the day, and that smooth transition. That's a sign that we see it every day. We take it for granted, becomes very normal or routine, and it is not. تخرج الحي من الميت تخرج الحي من الميت وتخرج الميت من الحي. There are also different explanations. You bring the living out of the dead and the dead out of the living. We have seen number of things that comes there have been a number of examples of living things that comes from something that is dead, or a dead thing that comes from something that is living. تخرج الحي من الميت وتخرج الميت من الحي وترزق من تشاء بغير حساب. This is another fundamental aspect of Tawheed, which is الرزق. I mean, everybody says it. We hear it in khutab, we hear it in khawatir and lectures, but I don't think we I don't think we really grasp what does it mean that your rizq, your provision is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not in your hand. It's not in the hands of anybody. It's not something that you should worry about. You should work hard for it. You should plan and work hard for it and do everything that you can to earn money and income, and should not take this as an excuse for laziness. But at the end of the day, nobody has your rizq. Nobody. Every source of your income is not a source, it's actually a channel. It's not a source of income, it's a channel of rizq through which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is providing you. And it can provide you from sources that you don't expect. So ومن يتق الله يجعل له مخرجا ويرزقه من حيث لا يحتسب. So make sure that this, very delicate, by the way, absolute belief, firm, that rizq in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you should never feel that you are completely at the mercy of someone or at the mercy of somebody, and that you have to, unless you that person is pleased with you, then probably they can cut your livelihood. That's not true. You shouldn't. You should have that firm belief, but that should not lead to the other extreme, which is to start to become complacent and say Allah Razzaq, so inshallah he will provide for me. No, there is no such thing. There is no such promise. And like tawakkul, this is another very delicate aspect of our faith. It's like tawakkul, very delicate, yani fine line, yani between depending on yourself and between becoming complacent. It's a very fine line between them, of me doing everything I can as if I'm relying on myself. And then when I do everything I can and I exhaust all the means, then I switch to rely completely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take care of things that are beyond my ability and beyond my capacity. وأخرى لم تقدروا عليها, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Fatih, وأخرى لم تقدروا عليها قد أحاط الله بها. وأخرى لم تقدروا عليها قد أحاط الله بها. يعني the thing that you could not do, that is beyond your ability, Allah will take care of it, or took care of it. And remember again the story of Musa alayhi salam, just hit the sea with the stick, even though it was not needed, and Maryam having to shake the palm tree, it was not needed. But that's a lesson for us, that as long there is one more thing that you can do, there is no such thing as tawakkul. Tawakkul, and the best example probably would be the hijrah of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam planned hijrah as if he was relying completely on his plan, and how when they were in the cave, there is nothing they can do. The people were above the cave, around the cave, and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq started worried that if they look down, they're going to see us. That's where the complete tawakkul That's the timing for it. That لا تحزن إن الله معنا. No, we are done our part. Now Allah is with us. So كلا, as Musa said, كلا إن معي ربي سيهدين. And then strongly recommend that you read those three things in the Quran, three passages: the Maryam alayhi salam, Musa alayhi salam, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his migration, because they tell you, it can help you understanding that concept of tawakkul. Now that's tawakkul. Rizq, the aqidah of rizq is also very delicate, because we have a lot. I mean, we have people, Egypt, you know, in Egypt, the population increases by 2.5 million every year. Now, why is this? Because of the wrong concept of rizq. So you have someone who's poor and limited income, and then have 7 children or 8 or I don't know what. Now, no plans for education. This is beyond the capacity of any government to that's another population every year. Yeah. That's beyond the capacity of any government to provide schools and hospitals, especially if things are not even in good shape, and to begin with. So most of these people, when they are, you know, الولد يجي رزقه معاه والله الرزاق ومش عارف, all of this is nonsense. يعني. All of this are true statements, but they are abused. يعني. They are misused and abused. So that rizq is important. Now we're going to come to something that is even more critical, which is al-wala wal-bara. لا يتخذ, no, because building on that foundation of tawheed comes what? لا يتخذ المؤمن إكم. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Malik al-Mulk, تؤتي الملك من تشاء, تنزع الملك من تشاء, تعز من تشاء, تذل من تشاء, everything, all that is good lie in her hand, and he has power over everything, and then control of this universe, and then provide for provide ترزق من تشاء بغير حساب. You bring the living, oh no, you provide limitlessly for whoever you will. If that's the case, then how could you take anybody else as a protector, يعني, as wali, يعني? So لا يتخذ المؤمنون الكافرين أولياء من دون المؤمنين ومن يفعل ذلك فليس من الله بشيء إلا أن تتقوا منهم تقى. What makes you go and take as protector? And awliya here is very important. It has nothing to do with having treating people fairly and kindly, because that's another verse that has established this very clearly, that in dealing with people, the minimum is fairness, and you can be as kind as you want. لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين لم يقاتلوكم في الدين ولم يخرجوكم من دياركم ولم يظاهروا أن تبروهم وتقسطوا إليهم. So the believer should not make the disbeliever their allies rather than other believers. Anyone who does such a thing will isolate himself completely from God, except when you need to protect yourself from them. إلا أن تتقوا منهم تقى. طيب, this is الولاء. Keep in mind that the word kafirin, first of all, the definition, which we elaborated on it last time. It's someone who has received the message of Islam clearly, realized, understood it very, and decided to reject it. That's one thing. Second, kafirin, in that context at that time, was almost all the time linked or confounded with the enemies of Muslims and the enemy of the state. People who were conspiring against the Muslim community, either from Mecca or from within the Medina. And that's why the emphasis, and the emphasis, you know, because some companions are still attached to the people in Mecca, either because of their cousins. And this is tribal society, or at least used to be still tribal society at that time. And then you have the Muslims of the Medina. They had very strong business ties with the Jews in the Medina. And nothing against Jews. We're talking about those who were conspiring against the state. So these people, some of them have kinship relationship. They are their relatives, and that's a tribal society that's very strong. and some of them have very strong business ties. And that's what explains why the Quran keep emphasizing this, which is you shouldn't take them as allies. Ally, loyalty here. We're talking about loyalty. We're talking about an American citizen conspiring with whoever in any other country that is North Korea or whatever. No, don't take them as allies. I mean, you are okay with within the Muslim community, you have those strong ties. You don't need this. Why? Because you were just told that Allah is the protector. Why do you need protection, yani? Why you're worried about this? Because at that time, tribe is a protection. The tribe is protection. And this is a new concept, that a community that is established on a mission and on a faith, and then in the Medina on a constitution and citizenship. All of these are very strange concepts at that time. It's still the ties are to the tribes, yani. So, and remember, I think you probably know the statement that Abdullah ibn Ubays mentioned to the Prophet ﷺ, that the fact that there was a lot of strong ties, and now you're coming to change the whole paradigm in Medina, and but we have ties with these people, and we have businesses and other interests. So وَمَنْ يَفْعَلْ ذَلِكَ فَلَيْسَ مِنَ اللَّهِ فِي شَيْءٍ. Again, this is now you're going to see a string of warning against this act. And I see personally this act more in today's language, it's more of treason. It's not the wala and bara, that the nonsense that we hear from Muslim groups, some groups. No. This is more of a treason. This is someone who is belonging to the Muslim community, but still has some attachment and agendas, maybe, or maybe can be a weak spot through which people can conspire or can harm Muslims. I see it this way more than Muslim and Kafir. You're Kafir, I cannot take you an ally, and then you know where it can lead. Yeah. So let's separate the two. You present Islam. You represent Islam first in the best possible way. You present it whenever you have a chance in the best possible way. بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة. By the way, these two conditions, the vast majority of Muslims, they don't meet them yet. And we can stop there. Yani. If you say Muslim is a good ambassador of Islam, and it attracts people to Islam, I don't know how many, what percentage. Yani. طيب. With this percentage, how many of them are good in articulating Islam the right time, with the right dose, بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة? I don't know how many. I don't know how many are going to be left yet. So, and if you can do that, you have very good relationship with people, you're reaching out socially, you have those friends, and then you choose the best time if they ask, and then you articulate Islam in the right way. And then after you do everything you can, and they decide not to accept Islam, fine. They're still your neighbor, they're still your colleague, they're still your brothers and sisters in humanity, and none of this should change. Still, mutual respect, and if you can cooperate for the common good, go for it. You find yourself having common interest, whether it is in social justice or in environmental justice or anything, or in education, or just go and work for these things. That's as simple as that. It's not complicated yet. I mean, confusion in Islam is created only when people try to complicate it, because it's so simple. As simple as that. Wala and bara is something else. It's taking somebody as an ally. Again, in that sense, it's a Muslim community, min dun al-mu'mineen. And if you, I don't know why this verse did not take the right attention in Surah Al-Anfal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَلَمْ يُهَاجِرُوا مَا لَكُم مِّن وَلَايَتِهِم مِّن شَيْءٍ. Muslims, they believed, but they did not migrate to the Medina. Yani they are not citizens. They are not citizens of the Medina. ما لكم من ولايتهم من شيء. They have nothing to do with them. حتى يهاجروا. Until they migrate. To that extent, يعني. The people of Medina were considered citizens, non-Muslims. They were considered citizens. Muslims who did not migrate say ما لكم من ولايتهم من شيء. So these people who travel across the world and I don't know what they do, that's nonsense. That's really silly. يعني. طيب وإن استنصروكم في الدين فعليكم النصر. Surah Al-Anfal, verse 72. I hope if you have translation, read it until I read the translation. Surah Al-Anfal is Surah 8. Surah 8, please try to access translation. Surah 8, verse 72, in the middle of it. وَإِنِ اسْتَنْصَرُوكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ فَعَلَيْكُمُ النَّصْرُ. Now we have seen what they call just war. There are some people who are oppressed and then you go and help them. That's okay. We have seen it time and again. These one استنصروكم في الدين. Those are oppressed because of their faith. If you can support them or you must support them. إلا على قوم بينكم وبينهم ميثاق. The Quran is way ahead of us, يعني. Way ahead of Muslims. يعني. إلا على قوم بينكم وبينهم. Except if they belong to people or a country or a state or whatever with whom you have a treaty. You have to honor that treaty. إلا على قوم بينكم وبينهم ميثاق. طيب احنا فينا we have treaties. We have treaties nowadays and we have citizenship and we have يعني it's way Quran is really way ahead of Muslims nowadays. I don't know why this verse I didn't see really a lot of emphasis on it because it's a very it's an eye-opener. I mean, it tells you that people who are Muslims, but they decided to belong to another state or to remain citizen of another state. You have nothing to do with them. As simple as that. Until they migrate. I mean, they migrate, they take citizens, they become citizen. Now, how about if they are oppressed? Now, you must help them if you can. Except if they belong to a country or state with whom you have a treaty. إلا على قوم بينكم وبينهم ميثاق. يعني I don't know whether you see it. You see how the discrepancy between how great this religion is and how mediocre يعني Muslim minds and Muslim behavior is. يعني. There is no comparison. والله. There's no comparison. يعني. So things have to be taken. So this wala and bara that came from the Salafi school and made it that everybody took the right to decide wala and bara. And wala and bara means yani the next step will be what should we do with those, and bara means kafir, and kafir what should we do, and then the other will issue fatwa, and the last one will execute. Yani. That's, and unfortunately that's the mess we have been yani in for quite some time now. لا يتخذ المؤمنون الكافرين أولياء من دون المؤمنين. Until you belong to a community, you cannot have that hidden or special relationship or with people at that time. They are the enemies of the state. There is hardly any kafir at that time who kept it for himself. And those they were never, I mean, they're not included in any of probably in any of the verses that talk about the kafirin, because kafirin at that time, that's what it meant. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, when he decided to fight those who refused to pay zakah, it was not on a religious ground. It was on a political ground. And on a religious ground, the argument of the companions, including Umar ibn Khattab, who objected to him, was stronger. If we take the literal meaning of the hadith, the companions who objected to fighting people that was stronger than the argument of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. But the argument on political ground, the argument of Bakr as-Siddiq, of course, by no means was the right thing to do. I mean, let any state here or county decide to refuse paying taxes, yani, or individually. So gonna have to understand this idea. These not because they were kuffar, yani. That's not the point. It was a political decision because that's rebellion against the state, and that will lead to disintegration of the state. So religiously, if you take the literal meaning, actually even religiously, because religion, it should not be understood in a literal meaning. And you can see how Umar al-Khattab evolved, if you want, yani, later on, and made those very important ijtihad, while at that time in that decision, he was against it because he was sticking to the literal meaning of one hadith. إلا أن تتقوا منهم تقاه. تتقوا منهم تقاه. This is also was very abused meaning, this tuqya thing. It wasn't meant to be tuqya. Yeah. It wasn't meant to be deceiving people, except when you need to protect yourself from them. Basically, if you are under necessity. Now we know necessity changes rules. Yeah. When you are in the desert and the only thing that is available is alcoholic beverages, you have to drink. Yeah. You shouldn't allow yourself to die, or something, a dead animal you have to eat, yeah, or pork if you're gonna die. Yeah. That's necessity. So you should not take them, I mean, as allies, except if you are in a situation where you need to protect yourself from them, because saving your life, remember, إلا من أكره وقلبه مطمئن بالإيمان. The Rasul ﷺ told the people in Mecca that if you have to, you can, I mean, go with the flow or show, especially those who were slaves and they were tortured badly, yani. And if you can I mean, claim that you rejected Islam and you save yourself and you save your life, go for it. And I said I'm gonna read the translation of Surah Al-Anfal. What verse did I say? Verse
72.
72. Jazakallahu khairan. Those as for those who believed but did not immigrate, you are not responsible for their protection until they have done so. But if they seek help from you against persecution, it is your duty to assist them, except against people with whom you have a treaty. And I don't know why this verse, which I consider very foundational, yani, why it did not take the right attention, yani, proper attention. Yani. طيب. Quran, as usual, as you can see, the methodology of Quran, as usual, when it tells you what not to do something, this comes a string of warnings. That's all what we have to say. Because at the end of the day, you are not a judge. You are conveying the message and the witness. String of warning. Because this is very serious. We're talking about, basically, we're talking about treason. Allah is here. You take the enemy of a state, either from within or from outside, as an ally. It's committing a treason. It's the biggest thing that you know, that treason, you know what happens to you anywhere in the world. And in most countries in the world, it's execution. In those where execution, the death penalty is not enforced, then probably it's, I don't know how many lives in jail. Yeah. Treason. So what Quran tells you that just do something about it. No. وَيُحَذِّرُكُمُ اللَّهُ نَفْسَهُ وَإِلَى اللَّهِ مَصِيرُ. Of course, on a political ground, that's something else. We're talking about on a religious ground. This kafir, you have nothing to do with it. Now, if someone committed a treason, the state will deal with him, not you. You don't take the law in your hand. That's why here you have the string of warnings, because Quran relies on people responding, or the majority of people responding voluntarily. And the law will apply only to the exception. So one, يحذركم الله نفسه. That's by itself is very strong. يحذركم الله نفسه. The believer should not make the disbelievers their allies rather than other believers. Anyone who does such a thing will isolate himself completely from Allah. That's a warning by itself. ليس من الله في شيء. Allah, whom he was described in the previous two verses. يعني مالك الملك وتعز من تشاء وتذل من تشاء وترزق من تشاء بغير حساب وتؤتي الملك من تشاء. You're going to isolate yourself from this, from مالك الملك, from Allah. So you can see how Quran established the foundation so that even the warning becomes stronger, because ليس من الله في شيء, if it came like by itself, is not as strong as it if it comes after those two strong verses. ليس من الله في شيء. You're going to lose all of that. You're going to isolate yourself from Allah. You're going to be on your own. Why? Because you chose these as your protector or your allies. فليس من الله في شيء. Except when you need to protect yourself from that. We talked about that. طيب. Allah warns you to beware of him. حذركم الله نفسه. A lot of time Allah will warn you with something else. This time he warned you with himself. Beware of him. حذركم punishment, عذاب, warn you. No. حذركم الله نفسه. Because you're going to be face to face with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's whom you're going to confront. You're going to isolate yourself, and now it took it to another level, which is you're going to be من عاد لي وليا فقد آذنته بحرب. You're going to be at war with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah is warning you of himself, not of something that's going to happen to you. You're going to be, if you do that, you're going to isolate yourself from Allah, and now you're going to confront Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. And then وَإِلَى اللَّهِ الْمَصِيرُ, in the day of judgment. So it's a disaster. You're going to be confronting Allah in this life. You're going to lose his help first. You're going to lose everything. You're going to isolate yourself from everything. That's by itself, it's a big loss. And now you're going to be confronting whom? Confronting Allah. And then there is the day of judgment. Total loss. These three warnings, one is stronger than the other. Warns you to beware of him. The final return is to Allah. So you're going to isolate yourself from Allah, who was described in the previous two verses. And then you're going to confront Allah, beware of him, حذركم الله نفسه. And then finally, it's وَإِلَى اللَّهِ الْمَصِيرُ. طيب, it stops there? No, it doesn't. Warning does not stop there. There is another more warning are coming. This time it's about knowledge. Because you may start thinking, well, I can go away with it, I can hide it, I can conceal it, keep it for myself, I can do this without anybody noticing. No. Comes here, قُلْ إِن تُخْفُوا مَا فِي صُدُورِكُمْ. It's not if you do this conspiracy or treason, you do it secretly. No. If you conceal something in your hearts, Allah knows everything that is in your hearts, whether you conceal or reveal it. قُلْ إِن تُخْفُوا مَا فِي صُدُورِكُمْ أَوْ تُبْدُوهُ يَعْلَمُهُ اللَّهُ. What did we say about knowledge? This, every time you hear a verse focusing on the absolute knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's scary, but it's also comforting. It's scary because it makes you close that door of I can hide from people. I can do it without anybody noticing. Or no, stop. But at the same time, if I'm gonna do something good, Allah is watching. So that's great. If I have some good plans, good intention, a good deed, etc., Allah is watching, because He's watching all the time. So it's a big incentive and also big deterrent, yani, very strong deterrent. And then that's يعلم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض. And Allah, and He knows everything in the heavens and earth. Again, focusing on knowledge, because just before that, it may come to the minds of people, because most of these relationships were not, or some of them, they were not really very open. Yani there are still feelings. People are attached to their tribes. They migrated to Medina, but they are still attached. And there are people who from Medina joined Islam, but they're still attached to their partners, business partners, etc. And again, there is nothing with partnership. There is nothing with fair dealing, with compassion and kindness. We're talking about treason and alliance with enemies of the state. Wallahu ala kulli shay'in qadir again. إنك على كل شيء قدير. 2 verses ago, and now again Allah has power over all things, because the warnings are strong by themselves, but you're going to have to remember that also Allah has power over all things. So you're going to lose or to be isolate yourself from Allah. You're going to confront Allah. You're going to face Allah on the day of judgment, and Allah, who was described in the previous 2 verses, and the one who knows everything that you conceal or you reveal, knows everything on heavens and earth, and has power over everything. It's sealed completely. It's the warning. I mean, the amount of warning will really make any person who has a shred of faith will refrain from committing that act of treason. يوم تجد كل نفس ما عملت من خير محضرا وما عملت من سوء تود لو أن بينها وبينه أمدا بعيدا. Again, ويحذركم الله نفسه. والله رؤوف بالعباد. Beautiful touch at this time. In a string of warning comes a very nice touch. Yani. So, which day? إلى الله المصير, we just said. Now come back to describe that day. On the day when every soul finds all the good it has done present before it. All the good it has done present before it. It will wish all the bad it has done to be far. وما عملت من سوء تود لأن بينها وبينه أمدا بعيدا. It's a very eloquent description of the day of judgment. You're going to find everything good that you have done. That's a very, it's an invitation for you to do more. You're going to find it. And then you're going to see the bad things that you're going to wish to be pushed away. Of course, you don't want them to be big. You don't want them to be big, and you don't want to have a large amount. And you want to minimize that, because it's Quran is very, and I heard it one time from a colleague who was English literature professor. She was not Muslim, but she reads the Quran translation of the Quran, and she was very impressed with the eloquence of the Quran. And one time she said that it's as if you're watching a play, like masrahiyya. It's so eloquent that almost very artistic. يوم تجد كل نفس, so it's on the day of judgment. You're there, you find all your good deeds there. That's good. You want to be as many as you want to maximize them, and then you're going to look and find the bad deeds. You want them just as far away from you as possible. Of course, that's a very eloquent invitation or incentive to do as much good as you can while you can, and to minimize any su or any sins. And then وَيُحَذِّرُكُمُ اللَّهُ نَفْسَهُ. Again, وَيُحَذِّرُكُمُ اللَّهُ نَفْسَهُ. I don't know whether, I don't remember whether this statement exactly was repeated in other places or not, but we can find out. But to be mentioned twice, almost back to back, actually, in 3 verses, twice, يحذركم الله نفسه, Allah, and Allah, beware of him. Allah warns you to beware of him. Allah warns you to beware of him. Just compare the two. Allah warns you to beware of him. Over there was وَإِلَى اللَّهِ الْمَصِيرُ. The final return is to Allah. We were in the beginning of the string of warnings. Now we are at the end. Comes Wallahu Ra'ufun bil ibad. It's a lot. It's a lot of warnings. So people need some comforting. But Allah is compassionate toward his servants. سنم الله amazing book. والله رؤوف بالعباد يوم تجد كل نفس. So we go from string of very strong warnings that goes to the day of judgment. When you see the bad deeds, you want them to be pushed as far as possible, and then Allah again warns you to beware of him, which is probably one of the strongest warning, because that's not a warning of punishment. That's warning of confronting Allah, or being at war with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. حذركم الله نفسه. And then because of all of this comes the final Wallahu Ra'ufun bil ibad, because this Quran is about keeping that heart vibrant. So there is always these warning and comforting, because that's what keeps our hearts awake and alert all the time, but also not fall in despair, or not, and keep that hope in Allah's mercy. Wallahu Ra'ufun bil ibad. I think we can stop here for the moment. We have a couple of verses before we start the story of Adam, story of Ali Imran and Maryam and Zakaria and Yahya and Isa. Let's stop, because the next 2 verses also have different meanings. So if we have time, we can come back to them today. Otherwise, we will do it next time, inshallah. So the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I think your explanation about the birth control is not enough. You know,
About what?
the control the population, the birth control is not enough. You talk about it, you know. It's too strong ayah in the Quran. We will feed you with them and we will feed them with you, you know. And I remember the Prime Minister, I think, of Pakistan, she talked about same issue in the United Nations, you know. How we
I didn't understand which control.
the birth control. When you talk about Egypt, how the population exploded.
Oh, okay. You're right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Every time we talk about same issue with other people, they attack us on this. You know, it's everything from Allah. How you want to do that? You know.
No. We have to be careful here, because I don't know about Prime Minister of Pakistan or anything, but let's be practical. Now, populations can become an asset, human resources, but that's if you have a real government and leadership and vision. In China, population became an asset, but not in our countries. If you compare, for example, and I don't want to get into the fiqh issue, or what I'm talking about is that families should be careful in terms of not having children and then having no means to educate them or to secure good health care for them, or etc. And you're not in Denmark, you're not in Sweden or Finland or Denmark. Otherwise, I'll tell you, get even, I don't know how many children you want. And you are in a state where barely is managing to provide mediocre education and healthcare for the existing population. So I'm not birth control advocate or anything. All what I'm saying is that Egypt, the way it is now, its infrastructure, its services, its capacity is not capable of absorbing 2.5 million every year. And you have seen Ashwaiyat, people live in horrible conditions. Yani, wallahi, they are not even proper for animal. They're not appropriate for animals. Yani. And you have seen Awlad al-Shawara, people, children who are living in the streets. And all of this is happening. So what's the point? Yani? There are now families who are having children just to throw them in the street. So I'm not about birth control or fiqh or anything. All what I'm saying is that saying that rizq ala Allah, and that's fine. I'm a poor person. I'm barely making it, but I still can have 7 children because Allah will provide for them. No, and I don't believe in this. And some people may not like it, but then I don't believe in this. No. When you have a country that has a big national project that is capable of leveraging existing human resources and more, and even asking for human resources like Canada, for human resources from outside, that's a different story. But that's not the case in most Muslim countries. Yeah. And I didn't say this, for example, in Libya, at certain point in time, Libya or Gulf countries or etc. I mean, where you have almost everything guaranteed for children. That's a different story, Yani. But I mentioned that example because it's one of the things that is, it's basically you don't have the infrastructure, you don't have the resources, Yani. And when you see the state of education in many Muslim countries, by the way, even Tunisia, which did not have a population explosion, I mean, healthcare and education system are in horrible situations. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Suhail.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I have 2 questions. One is on fighting for justice of communities that are oppressed, like let's say the Uyghur. So you talked about countries that have allies. So does this explain why, for example, the Muslim majority states silence on mistreatment of Uyghur by the Chinese communist? Are they using this verse to say that maybe we have treaties with Chinese government, so we cannot maybe condemn them on these issues? And then my second point is on Surah Taha. Maybe you can shed more light on the verse ما أنزلنا عليك القرآن لتشقى. Yes, so we are told that the Quran is not sent to cause distress or unnecessary hardship, but unfortunately the way we translate it, the way the way especially some of our scholars and our own misunderstanding, we create a lot of impossibilities in our lives. So yeah, I'd like you to shed more light on that. Thank you.
All right, let's start with the first one. Most of these governments, they were looking for excuses, not actually, because even though there are treaties nowadays, but these treaties also, including especially in the international and the human and United Nations and etc., these treaties, they can be leveraged also to put pressure on China. I mean, the idea here was at that time is going to attack. Yani. You want to go to help the Uyghur and then you go and attack that country. You cannot do that. Yani, that's or to free these people, for example. You cannot do that. If you have a treaty, you have to honor that treaty. But now with the treaties come resources to leverage. Many Muslim countries, they have, first of all, the international law and the human rights organizations. And there are some Muslim countries, they have even business and economic leverages they can use. I mean, one way or the other, if they wanted to put some pressure, because China, at the end of the day, cannot live in isolation. China is becoming the factory of the world. If people do not buy Chinese goods, they're not in good shape, yani. So, but no, Muslim countries, they're not helping anybody, because they're most of them, they're even oppressing their own people. And if they oppress their own people, they cannot talk about oppression elsewhere, because that exposes them. Yani, somebody who's an oppressive ruler in a Muslim country, and then he's going to go speak against China oppressing Uyghurs, and he will not do it. Actually, he doesn't want even those news to be spread, because that would embarrass him, yani, because it's the same situation. ما أنزلنا عليك القرآن لتشقى. This any proper understanding of this deen will lead you to that this deen came to secure and guarantees happiness and success for people in this life and in thereafter. And they have always been saying that if you are a Muslim and you don't find yourself happy in all situations, in all conditions, happy doesn't mean that you don't feel sad or you don't feel sometimes some stress. Or no, we're not saying that. We're saying that there is peace of mind and self-satisfaction inside that does not depend on anything external. That's the true happiness that Islam engenders in the Muslim. But that's the proper Islam. When you embrace it as a mission and you find yourself all the time striving to fulfill that mission, and that gives you a lot of fulfillment inside, and that will make you able to overcome any adversity or anything. I mean, we are a human being. If there is a sad news, you're going to be sad, or you lose something, or you lose someone. But we're not. This will never drag you into despair or being stressed out or confused, etc. Because at the end of the day, you have a clear calling in this life and clear mission and clear goals that you're working with, and you are aligned with the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Actually, not only you are aligned, you are executing it. Not only you are aligned with Allah's plan and Allah's rules and Allah's sunan, yani the rules that He embedded in this universe, but also you are trying to execute that plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That gives you some level of happiness that you can never buy, no matter how much you're willing to spend or no matter how much money you have. يعني. So من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is promising pleasant life for a believing man and woman. الذين آمنوا وتطمئن قلوبهم بذكر الله ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات طوبى لهم وحسن مآب. That even in this life, this deen is promising some sort of happiness that you can never find anywhere, and you can never buy it, and you can never achieve it except through this. But we're talking about the true Islam that we have been reminding ourselves of the need to rediscover it, not the mutilated, superficial, shallow, distorted versions that we have inherited. That only causes tension inside and causes tension between you and families and between you and the society and between you and the world and put you in a very tense situation.
Barakallahu fik, Doctor. So we can call it this happiness like salam dakhili is kind of inner peaceful.
Yes.
Okay. So rida. Okay. Thank you, Doctor, على this interesting topic about the الولاء والبراء and الملك لله سبحانه وتعالى is the only one who rules, the only one who belongs, real belonger. Let's say is landlord, like he belong everything. He own everything subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I have a question about the risk that you mentioned that. So in the case that Abu Firasi asked about, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Quran in Surah Al-An'am and Surah Al-Isra, ولا تقتلوا أولادكم من إملاق, نحن نرزقكم وإياهم. This أنعام then في الإسراء ولا تقتلوا أولادكم خشية إملاق. نحن نرزقهم وإياهم. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he make the warning about the risk, because when you believe that you mentioned already, when you believe in risk that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, the risk comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the only one who provides the risk. But the cause for the risk, or asbab, to get that risk is upon what's called depend of your effort or something like that. So this is the first point. The second point, I have confusion about الولاء and البراء. So wala and bara, what's the wala exactly? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the last of Surah Mumtahana or Surah Al-Mujadila, those is one of the surah talking about bara and wala, and even Surah what's called Surah Tawbah, Surah Al-Anfal. So Surah Tawbah has a special context, I think. So about the hadith ذو العسرة ولا الغزوة ذو العسرة. ولكن لا إله إلا محمد رسول الله عليه السلام. So والله سبحانه وتعالى, when he said in Surah Al-Mumtahina, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتولوا قوما غضب الله عليهم قد يئسوا من الآخرة كما يئس الكفار من أصحاب القبور. What does it mean that? So what's the comparison between يئس الكفار من أصحاب القبور وولاء الكافرين? جزاك الله خير. Thank you.
وإياكم. أنا for wala, first of all, that's my understanding, yani, that and I always have in the background that the Quran is a book that is meant to be universal, but at the same time it was revealed in a context. It was revealed in a certain context.
Yes,
so we should never forget that, because that's very fundamental. That Quran, even though it is meant to be universal, it is universal, but it was revealed in a certain context. And therefore, we have to always find the fine line between something that is principle and something that is either fully contextual or partially contextual, that there is some touches. Like, for example, the word kafirin has some contextual aspect, because at that time it has a certain meaning. Why? Because at that time, there is hardly any kafir who is just by himself and minding his own business. It was like almost 100% kafir means someone who's conspiring against the Muslim community in the Medina, etc. So there is that, it has that لا تتولوا قوما غضب الله عليهم قد يئسوا من الآخرة كما يئس الكفار من أصحاب القبور. It's the same thing. I mean, it's the same meaning that you should not, we're talking about allegiance. Wala is allegiance. Like, for example, you are an American citizen, but you have an allegiance to Soviet Union or to Russia. Allegiance. Wala is an allegiance. It's not like having good relationship or fair or friend. No.
Or love.
No. There is no such thing.
الحب في الله, لأنه في التعريف الحب في الله والكره في الله.
No. It is allegiance. Allegiance. So yeah, allegiance to Allah and to the community that you are part of it. But there is no such thing as you live in a place and you have allegiance. Even it's not consistent with the nature of Islam, that Islam has no cheating. You can't be a citizen and conspiring against that country, and while you signed on the constitution and you signed on citizenship. And these are contracts. I mean, these are contracts. By accepting to be a citizen of the United States, you are signing on the constitution. And you are, and يا أيها الذين آمنوا أوفوا بالعقود. That's a principle. That's not contextual. يا الذين آمنوا أوفوا بالعقود. Honor your treaty or your contract or your covenants. And that's one covenant. So we have to make, and then we have to focus on the practical aspect of it. Let's not go for hypothetical situation. Practically speaking, nowadays, if you are a citizen of a country, your allegiance is to that country. Very simple. Allegiance does not interfere with the allegiance to Allah. It does not interfere with it. It doesn't mean that you're going to accept kufr or you can accept dhulm, injustice, or etc. But you are loyal citizen, abiding by the law, accepted the constitution. That's allegiance. The allegiance, the problem we have, I mean, if you are in Algeria, by the way, this will not be an issue for you. But it is an issue because we're still don't see ourselves as part of this country, or many
Yes.
of us. Now, if you are in Algeria and people ask you, if you are called to serve in the army, are you going to respond? You say yes, because that's a matter of pride there. Muslims serve in the American, people start hesitant. Why? Because we don't see ourselves citizen. This problem is going to disappear with our generation, because we're going to have a generation of Muslims in this country very soon. Probably 99% or 98% of them indigenous, means people who are born here, raised here, and they're going nowhere. So there is no such thing as back home, and there is that we have this language that we have between us. And therefore, the issue becomes what? If this is your country, then you are called to serve, you serve. It doesn't mean that you go and fight in unjust war, like Muhammad Ali refused. You refuse and you pay the consequences. I mean, that's your principle. Why? Because this time, your loyalty to the state came against your principle. I'm not going to do it. Whatever that consequences. Why? Because while I am a loyal citizen, but I have a set of values and beliefs, I'm sticking to them, and I'm not willing to compromise them. So you ask me to go and fight in a war that is unjust? No, I'm not going. And Muhammad Ali paid the price for it. He paid the price. He did not go.
That's a good example.
Yeah, I mean that's you can understand that. But to say no, I'm citizen, and I'm going to benefit from everything that is, but no, I'm not going to serve at all because I don't believe in this country. Why are you saying here? So a lot of issues that we have in this country, they are because most of us are still thinking as Muslims who happen to be in America. But that's not the case for an American who converts to Islam. That's not the case for future generations. 2-3 generations ahead, this problem will disappear, because you're going to have people who did not know any other country, period. So the only thing that will be, it's like in Algeria. If you are called in Algeria to serve in the army, you're going to serve, and your family will be proud of you, and everybody will be proud of you. But if you're going to be called to fight in unjust war, you may refuse even if you are executed in. Because you say, my values are higher. I'm not going to do it. If you say that's you're disobeying a decision, this can lead to military tribunal, and you may be even executed, fine. That's my principle. I'm not going to compromise it. That doesn't take anything away from your allegiance to the state, but allegiance with the principle, not blind allegiance. Not the blind allegiance that I'm going to serve whatever happens. No.
Because sometimes we because some ideas that stuck in our head that البراءة is الحب في الله والكره في الله, when they said like when you treating the others like non-Muslims and you love them and you like them, you treat them, it's not like treating is fine. So لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين لم يقاتلوكم في الدين ولم يخرجوكم من دياركم أن تبروهم. So البر to the all over the people is fine, but the love, like inside love, so he loved them, he liked them. So this is the thing.
Yeah, Sheikh, and get us the love among Muslims, and then we'll talk about the rest. يعني احنا among Muslims we're not seeing that love اصلا and inshallah when we secure love among Muslims through love, inshallah we'll talk about the rest, but it's not even there يعني. Where do you see it يعني?
Subhanallah, yes. Okay,
but
the second
you know
thing
what, even this definition should not be taken out of context, because we should take this Islam, as the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, it's a mateen. فأوغلوا فيه برفق. You can't take one verse or one definition that ولا بحب في الله that's you can't يعني, because there is إن خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا. طيب, there is strong emphasis on the fact that humanity is one family that was created from pair of male and female, and there are people still, and that even Abi Talib says الناس إما أخوك في أو نظير لك في الخلق أخوك في الدين أو نظير لك في الخلق, or something like that. Yeah, I mean, this dimension we were weakened by the Salafi trend, which divides the world into Muslims and non-Muslim, and then wala and bara, love here, hate there, fight there, and all of this has to be revisited. And we have to strengthen the compassionate aspect, compassion in Islam, the dose of compassion, and the dose of insaniya. That this religion is very compassionate and very, very human, yani very. It's not the way it's not the Bedouin, the desert religion that we received, yani. I mean, we removed the spirituality from it. So now we have a religion that has almost no spirituality. Why? Because they said spirituality can lead to bid'ah. That's what Sufi did. So let's remove it. So we have a religion without spirituality. That's by itself is bad. Because spirituality is like the, I don't know, salt or whatever. It's very essential. Then you come and say that you take away this compassion from the. And I say, if you take compassion from Islam, there is hardly anything left. Because this is a deen of compassion. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. مش love, mercy to humanity. Mercy, if the Prophet was sent mercy to humanity, you and I should be mercy to people around us. Can you be mercy to someone and you hate?
Nice. So about the second thing, about the rizq and the imlaq. ولا تقتلوا أولادكم خشية إملاق أو من إملاق.
قتل أولاق. قتل. There were people, they were burying them alive because it is because they get a daughter and they say daughter does not earn money, and then they were burying them alive. Mostly at that time, that's what happens. As I said, always you have to take the contextual aspect of it. Nobody is talking about killing children. I mean, we're talking about ways so that you don't have more children that they can sponsor. Unless you are in a country that they can take care of them. That's a different story. And even with that, nowadays, raising children, it takes a village, as Hillary said. It takes a village to raise a child. Raising a child is not as it used to be before. The amount of attention that is needed from the parents to raise a successful, competitive child in this competitive world, it's not the way like before. The street, they are in the street playing, and cousins are helping, and everybody is helping. The amount of attention that is needed, and by the way, sometimes, and that's an abuse that we men are committing it. Let's face it, it comes on the mother most of the time, and we don't feel it. It comes on the mother, driving back and forth and teaching and watching homework and watching everything, and we don't see it. We don't see that part, so that's why sometimes we take it lightly. But it is a very heavy burden. It's not. It's not as it used to be anymore. Unless you want to compromise their education or their health or whatever.
So because of that, you have to organize yourself. It's not you have to cut.
No, we're talking about organizing.
Kind of organizing.
Organizing.
So everybody has ability. So financial ability, which patient ability to raise their children in the right way, and so it depends on the person. It depends on the person more.
Okay, we can discuss this more another time, as Brother Ayman mentioned, because that's a very delicate issue and made it require more discussion. Right. Any more questions?
It's Assalamu alaikum. This is Muhammad.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa
barakatuh. It's more like a comment about the word tulij al-layla fi an-nahari wa tulij an-nahara fi al-layl. The meaning of tulij here, it seems based on like what I have looked at, it seems like it has two meanings. It's the entering and the exits, or within that meaning, it has entering and exit, and it's not only entering the way that a lot of tafsirs took.
Yeah, it's entering and exit, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sure. Jazakallah khair. That was quick. Right, we have 2 more minutes.
Doctor.
Yes.
I will send you, inshallah. You have the same number in WhatsApp? Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll send you a video about Quran, one of the specialist. I don't know exactly what's his background. Is in French language. You're talking about
Sure.
Quran, we revealed, inshallah. So in 1 hour,
Sure.
I think. That's really
Sure.
nice. And
إن شاء الله.
give us your feedback.
إن شاء الله إن شاء الله بحول الله إن شاء الله.
جزاك الله. شكرا.
وإياكم إن شاء الله.
جزاك الله كل خير دكتور سيل، ان شاء الله
وإياكم بارك الله فيك.
السلام
إن شاء
عليكم.
الله. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
بوريك